angry at high production costs, say they will increase their roadblock campaign. In recent months, similar protests have swept through Europe. This as farmers are fed up with inflation and higher costs associated with growing crops. The protests have been heaviest in places like France and in Germany. And here with the latest on this is AC Wimmer of CNA Deutsch. AC, always good to be with you. So fill us in a little bit more about what is behind these protests and why it matters.
Thanks, Tracy. It's great to be here. Look, really, there's a whole disconnect from policy and farmers' reality that's going on. There's a whole toxic cocktail of issues at play. There's a backlash against the cuts in agricultural subsidies. There's heaps of red tape, and it's getting more and more. There's a whole labyrinth of requirements for farmers. But overall, there's also the deal that the European Union is putting in place with Mercosur, that Latin American trading bloc, and the opening of crops coming in from the Ukraine. That's in particular tough for the Polish farmers. And then you've got the European Green Deal, which is setting all sorts of requirements, in particular setting aside land, a certain percentage of your own land as a farmer. So that's toxic for a lot of farmers, and that's why they're out in the streets of Europe.
Yeah, and I'm curious, have these protests so far, have they had any impact on policy or led to any changes? Do you know?
Yes, they have. There's been they're walking back some of the policies careful on the European Union's front. Certain issues around the Green Deal, especially land set-aside percentages. In Germany, for instance, they're also looking at not cutting agricultural subsidies, such as for diesel, which is really important, obviously, for tractors, for machinery. But it's hard to say what the real full spectrum of the effects will be.
Yeah. I also know farmers in Italy are also taking part in this. And over the past weekend, a small group of farmers, bringing with them a cow, went to St. Peter's Square on Sunday for the noontime Angelus. What more can you tell us about this, AC?
So this is a very famous cow and the daughter of a famous cow. Her name is Ercolina Due. And the protesting farmers wanted to bring her to, like her mother once was in the late 90s, for an EU milk protest, St. Peter's Square. Unlike her mother, she wasn't let on to St. Peter's Square, so they milked her just outside, created just as much of a kerfuffle as you can imagine. And we'll yet to see, though, if Pope Francis will also react and comment on the situation. Catholic bishops across Europe have commented, and the Commission of the Bishops' Conferences in particular have expressed their support for the protests.
What about the public? What kind of support are they giving support to these farmers?
There is a massive amount of support. You're even seeing people joining the protesters saying, listen, no farms, no food. We want local produce. We want good Beaujolais wine, for instance. We want all those things. So there's a fair amount of support, and there are, of course, also some critics.
AC, what's the long-term prospects for farming on the continent, and what will happen, and what have you seen happen so far with the food chain because of these protests?
Look, I think that's really the crucial question. If these farmers reach a point where continuing their operations really is untenable, as it is for a growing number of them, the implications are not just for Europe, as massive as that is. They're for the global food chain. They will affect people around the world. Europe's a huge player in the world's agricultural market, not just in terms of the exports, but also setting standards for sustainable farming practices. So a reduction in Europe would also lead to higher food prices globally, could trigger a domino effect when it comes to these sustainability goals in terms of climate change policy and things like that. And they could pressure regions to fill the gap, which would be at a huge cost for everyone.
Where do you see these protests going?
We've seen a lot of the protests sort of, going nowhere for a while. But given the vehemence of some of what we've seen, they'd be very quick to get those tractors out again if they feel they need to. How the European Union Commission will be acting, how they will be walking back some of these policies or changing them really is how that will play out.
Oh, AC, we're going to leave right there. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your insights on this important story. God bless.
Kindly, God bless.